The obsidian council chamber pulsed with the low thrum of the void engine, a heartbeat that echoed the unease saturating the room. Massive, crystalline pillars, each taller than a warship, rose from the floor, their surfaces reflecting the worried faces of the assembled krill. A swirling vortex of nebulae, contained within a force field at the chamber's center, served as a constant reminder of the infinite, unknowable expanse the krill sought to dominate. High above the all-seeing eye, a celestial monitor capturing every ripple in the galactic void, flickered with alerts, disturbances, anomalies, whispers of something other. The chamber's air, usually a calm blend of synthesized oxygen and recycled stellar essence, crackled with a palpable tension. At the head of the crescent-shaped council table, Grand Arbiter Xyler, his chitinous exoskeleton shimmering with an oily sheen, stared with unblinking compound eyes at the holographic projection that dominated the table's surface. It depicted a swirling chaos of energy signatures, a maelstrom of distortions defying known physics, the suspected signature of the species they had all, for millennia, sought to avoid. Humans. "The anomalies persist," Xyler stated, his voice a gravelly rasp that resonated through the chamber. The krill, a species bound by ancient traditions and a millennia-long reign of fear, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Each krill counselor, a veteran of countless galactic conflicts, radiated an aura of concern. For generations, the krill had built their empire on the principle of absolute control, meticulously mapping every star system, every energy fluctuation, every potential threat. Yet humans remained an enigma, a chaotic variable that threatened the carefully constructed order. They were the forgotten, the exiled, the beings the krill had once deemed insignificant, banished to the unexplored fringes of the galaxy. Now whispers of their resurgence, their power, echoed through the void, carrying a silent but deafening warning. Their energy signatures, they defy categorization, Counselor Vrak, a battle-hardened veteran, declared, his mandibles clicking nervously. They are erratic, unpredictable. He glanced at the chamber's holographic display, which highlighted the anomaly's chaotic fluctuations. It is as if they operate outside the known laws of physics. The implication was clear. The humans were not to be understood, or more terrifyingly, to be controlled. The Krill Empire had built its foundations on absolute understanding and control, and humanity represented a direct, existential threat to everything they had built. Silence descended, a suffocating blanket woven from fear and uncertainty. The counselors, each representing a sector of the Krill Empire, exchanged worried glances. The possibility of facing a species whose actions were beyond prediction was an almost unbearable weight. The Krill had crushed rebellions, annihilated entire species that had dared challenge their might, and now they might be facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The protocols must be activated, Counselor Zalara, known for her hawkish views, stated firmly. Quarantine, containment, the usual measures, we must prevent them from advancing further into our territory. Her statement, though seemingly logical, did little to soothe the escalating anxiety in the chamber. Containment had been the Krill's first response whenever they came across a new species, their first, and most often only, resort. They were a species of fear, of paranoia, and they sought to extinguish the unknown. Xyler hesitated. He knew Zalara's thirst for preemptive conflict was a danger in itself. "The data is incomplete," he said slowly, his voice laced with caution. "We know little of their capabilities. A preemptive strike could be disastrous." He looked at the holographic projection of the anomaly, its swirling energies hinting at an unknown, possibly terrifying power. "We cannot afford a miscalculation." "Miscalculation," Zalara's voice dripped with disdain. "Is that what we call it now? We have millennia of experience. The humans are a threat. They always have been. Remember the tales, the early reports, the stories of their unpredictability, their tenacity." She paused, as if savoring the terror of the words. "We can't let them have a foothold in the galaxy." A ripple of unease passed through the council. Tales of the humans, passed down through generations, were not tales of glory or of battle prowess, but of chaotic cruelty. Stories of a species that defied logic, that fought with seemingly no regard for strategy, fueled by an unknown fuel that allowed them to withstand horrific conditions. The elders spoke of their heart, their spirit, words that were almost blasphemous to the Krill's ordered, emotionless existence. Tales of the forgotten, of those who had defied the Krill Empire and been lost to the void. Counselor Rill, a scholar of ancient civilizations, spoke, his voice unusually hesitant. "The histories, they are fragmented. Our knowledge is limited. We were focused on, shall we say, other matters at the time of their exile." A brief silence filled the room. Perhaps we have underestimated their potential, their capacity for adaptation. Adaptation? Zalara scoffed, her mandibles clicking again in a dismissive gesture. They are savages, unpredictable savages. They would be crushed easily. She banged her fist upon the council table, making the crystalline surface vibrate. We are the Krill, we dominate the galaxy. We have evolved, we are the apex predators, and these humans are nothing. Xyler, however, remained unconvinced. The whispers of the void, the anomalies, the stories, they pointed to something more. We will need a more thorough investigation, he stated, his voice firm, finally making a decision. A reconnaissance probe, a clandestine observation team. We must gather more data before making any decisions that could affect the fate of the Empire. The decision was met with mixed reactions. Zalara and her hawkish faction were enraged. Other counselors, more cautious, were relieved. The fate of the Krill Empire, for now, rested on the edge of the unknown. Far beyond the borders of Krill space, in a sector of the galaxy that the Krill had long since abandoned as too unstable for their liking, a human vessel, the Hope's beacon, drifted silently amongst the nebula's ethereal glow. Inside the bridge, a human named Captain Eva Rostova, a woman of unyielding resolve and keen intelligence, watched the holographic display that depicted the Krill anomaly. Her eyes, the color of a stormy ocean, reflected a calm focus that would have seemed impossible to the fearful Krill. Beside her, Commander Jayan, an engineer and a man of few words, monitored the ship's energy levels. The bridge's atmosphere was one of serene efficiency. The silence was broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. "Sensors picking up something," Jayan said quietly, his voice a calm counterpoint to the alien's fear. "A probe, Captain, Krill's signature, approaching our position." Rostova's expression didn't change. "Interesting, signal them, standard greeting, initiate contact protocols." She turned to First Officer Chen, a woman with a quick mind and a talent for diplomacy. "Let's see what they have to say." Chen nodded and began issuing the necessary commands. The bridge screen, still showing the swirling chaos of the anomaly, flickered as a message was transmitted. The Hope's beacon waited. They knew the Krill were watching. They were always watching. On the Krill reconnaissance probe, a lone Krill observer, Ziekt, stared at the incoming message with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. The probe, a tiny, almost invisible speck, had been programmed to observe, to gather data, not to engage. Ziekt, however, found himself torn. The probe had picked up a faint energy signature, a hint of something different, a stark contrast to the expected chaos. The data was contradictory, a cacophony of scientific impossibility. The probe sent a response. The Krill, like all species, had a language. The human ship responded with an image, a stylized representation of a star, surrounded by an intricate web of symbols. Below, in a universal language of mathematics and physics, a simple phrase: "Greetings, we are humanity." Ziekt's internal processors went into overdrive, attempting to categorize the data. Humanity. They had expected an aggressive display, a crude attempt at intimidation. Instead, they got a greeting. An invitation in its own way. The Krill had never experienced this, and it shook the foundations of everything they thought they knew. They only knew of brute force and the raw fear that it created. He sent a reply, a curt message. "Identify yourselves, state your purpose." The Hope's beacon responded with a detailed breakdown of its mission. They were explorers, charting new sectors of the galaxy. They had been exiled, yes, but they harbored no ill will. Their purpose was knowledge, not conquest. Ziekt found himself intrigued, even if he didn't wish to be. He had been trained to fear, to distrust, to conquer. This was new. Humanity spoke of peace. Humanity spoke of cooperation. Humanity, it turned out, spoke a language that the Krill had long forgotten. "Show them our history," Rostova said, her voice barely a whisper, as if she was afraid to jinx it. "Show them our spirit." Chen nodded, and the holographic display transformed, showcasing a series of images and data streams. There were depictions of a war-torn Earth, ravaged by conflict. They displayed humanity's capacity for destruction, yes, but also for creativity, for resilience. They then showed the early days of space exploration, the human race reaching for the stars. And then the discovery, the exile, the hardships, and the gradual resurgence. The humans wanted to tell their story. The Krill probe, its internal systems struggling to keep up with the data, sent a query. "Why are you here? Why, after so long, have you revealed yourselves?" Rostova's response was simple yet profound. "Because the galaxy is vast, we believe there is room for all. We offer knowledge, we offer cooperation, we offer friendship." She paused, then added with a hint of steel in her voice. We also offer protection. Back in the Obsidian Council chamber, the initial reports from the probe arrived. The Krill counselors listened in stunned silence. The energy signatures, the erratic behavior, the tales of brutality, none of it made sense. Humans, it turned out, were not the chaotic, aggressive savages they had been made out to be. They were pragmatic, logical, even compassionate. They offer friendship, Xyler stated, repeating the words that had been transmitted by the probe. The concept was foreign, alien, but the data was undeniable. They speak of cooperation. Lies, Zalera hissed, her eyes narrowed. Deception. They are trying to lure us into a trap. We must destroy them before they are able to strike at us. Destroy them, Rill said, his voice quiet. We know so little about them. He turned to Xyler. What do our scouts say? They have shown themselves to be capable, Xyler reported, his voice tinged with a reluctant respect. Their technology, though different from our own, is advanced. Their ships, they appear to be formidable. He paused, then added, they are also efficient. They have already created a stable environment in the chaos. They have shown that they are not here for conflict. They have shown themselves to be deceptive, Zalera insisted. Perhaps we have misjudged them, Vrack said thoughtfully, a rare moment of introspection from the warrior. Their behavior, it does not match what we expected. If they wanted to attack, surely they would have done so already. We must consider the implications, Xyler continued, ignoring Zalara's protests. Their sudden reappearance, their technological proficiency. The void, he gestured towards the swirling vortex at the center of the chamber, a space the Krill had been attempting to understand for centuries. They seemed to be able to navigate it with relative ease. The implication was terrifying. If the humans knew secrets about the void, secrets that the Krill didn't, they could hold the key to the galaxy's most coveted resources, its most dangerous mysteries. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of debate. The hawkish faction, led by Zalera, argued for immediate annihilation. The more cautious counselors, like Xyler and Rill, urged restraint, a deeper understanding. The Krill, a species accustomed to ruthless efficiency, now found themselves paralyzed by uncertainty. They were dealing with the unknown, and they didn't like it. Finally, Xyler made a decision. We will send a delegation, he announced. We will meet with the humans, we will talk. He looked at Zalera, his gaze unwavering. We will seek understanding. He knew the decision was risky, but the Krill had to adapt or die. The future of their empire and perhaps the galaxy itself was at stake. The meeting was a study in contrasts. The Krill delegation, clad in ornate armor, their compound eyes flickering with suspicion, arrived aboard a massive warship, its hull bristling with weaponry. The human representatives, led by Captain Rostova, greeted them aboard the Hope's beacon. The ship was a far more modest vessel, but its interior was clean, functional, and infused with an atmosphere of calm professionalism. Rostova met them in a sterile white room. The Krill, used to dark chambers and the smell of ozone, were at first disoriented by the bright lights and the absence of oppressive authority. She met the Krill delegation with a calm voice, speaking a language designed to be easy for all species to understand. Rostova stood before the delegation, her expression one of polite but genuine interest. Beside her stood Chen, her demeanor relaxed. She could see the hesitation, the suspicion in the Krill's eyes, and somehow she felt that she understood. She began. We welcome you to our ship. We are the humans. We have been waiting. The Krill delegation leader, a grizzled warrior named Krell, stepped forward, his mandibles clicking nervously. You are the humans. You were banished. We do not understand. Why reveal yourselves? Rostova calmly answered. We have been exploring. We have mapped. We have grown. We have come to realize that the galaxy is a vast place and there is space for all. Krell stared at Rostova, his compound eyes processing the data. We fear your intentions, the stories of your brutality. Rostova's expression didn't change. We have made mistakes. We have suffered. We have learned. We have moved forward. We are not the species you remember. We have changed as all species must. How can we trust you? Krell demanded, his voice echoing in the sterile room. We are an empire built on control. You are chaos. Rostova smiled, a genuine smile that seemed to confuse the Krill. Trust is earned, not given. But we believe that cooperation is possible, even between such different species. We have, after all, shown you more about our history and current technology than any other species on our side of the galaxy. And what do you want? Krell pressed. You must have a purpose. Rostova gestured to the holographic display, which flickered into life. The display showed a detailed map of the galaxy, crisscrossed with lines of energy, representing interstellar trade routes, resource locations, and a complex network of alien empires. The map showed a network, but it was not the Krills, and the Krill were startled. "We want to work with you," Rostova explained, "to explore, to learn, to create a stronger galaxy together." The map zoomed in on a large area of uncharted space. "There are great discoveries in this void. We believe that we could work together to uncover them." The Krill were hesitant. Cooperation was a new concept, a risky one, but the humans' proposition was intriguing. The uncharted territory offered vast possibilities. The promise of knowledge and potentially power was a tempting offer. "Why not just conquer?" Krell asked, the question laced with suspicion. "You could destroy us, you could take what you want." Rostova simply shrugged. "We could, but we believe in something more. We believe that a galaxy built on cooperation is a stronger one. And we have learned that conquest is a lonely path. Besides, we are more interested in understanding the galaxy." "Show us," Krell demanded. Rostova nodded. She gestured to Chen, who activated a series of holographic displays. They showed complex scientific data, diagrams of advanced technologies, and schematics of human starships. But it wasn't the display itself that caught the Krill's attention. It was the logic behind the data. The humans operated on principles of efficiency, not brute force. They sought to understand and to adapt, rather than simply to destroy. The Krill had always used their technology to conquer. The humans seemed to want to use it to explore. The Krill were beginning to be convinced. Chen stepped forward, holding a small object. She spoke, her voice clear. "This is a neural interface we are willing to demonstrate." Rostova paused. This was a critical moment. If the Krill believed them to be deceptive, then they would see this as a trick. If the Krill still distrusted them, then they may have cause for concern. But the humans had always been open. She believed they had nothing to hide. Chen handed the interface to Krell. The Krill officer, clearly unsure, took the device, holding it in his mandibles. "How?" Krell asked, almost a whisper. Chen showed the Krill leader how to use the device. She explained what it would show him. She then connected the interface. On the screen, the Krill saw a simulation of a human starship traveling through a wormhole. They saw the intricate mechanics, the careful calibrations. They saw the human engineers working in perfect harmony, the captain making quick decisions. They saw the humans' knowledge of the void. And they saw compassion. The Krill saw in the form of the ship's captain a calmness and a determination, a willingness to sacrifice for their comrades and for the greater good. It was something that the Krill did not understand. Krell took the interface off. He stood silently. The Krill counselors could not understand his expression. Finally he spoke. "You have shown us much." He looked at Rostova. "Why?" Rostova smiled. "We all have a future to build, and it is more exciting with friends." Krell nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. "We will consider your proposal." The Krill delegation returned to the Obsidian Council chamber, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Zalara and her hawkish faction were ready to pounce, to condemn the meeting as a failure, to demand war. But the others, especially Xyler and Rill, held their breath, waiting for the report. Krell stood before the council, his posture unusually relaxed. He described the meeting, the humans' offer. He spoke of their technology, their resilience, their surprising rationality. He spoke of the neural interface and of the things he had seen. "They are not what we thought," Krell concluded. "They are different. They are not to be underestimated." "They are still humans," Zalara protested. "They will betray us." "Perhaps," Krell said, his voice flat. "But their offer, it is worth considering. They offer knowledge, cooperation, and protection. They say that together we can become stronger. They are offering us something that the Krill have never received." The councilors erupted in a cacophony of debate. The hawkish faction argued for immediate action, for a decisive strike. The more cautious councilors pressed for further exploration, for a deeper understanding. The room was consumed by conflict. Xyler, his face drawn, raised a hand, silencing the debate. "We must make a decision," he declared. "We cannot afford to waver." He paused, then said, "We will accept their offer." The chamber was silent. Zalara was aghast. The decision, though painful, had been made. "But we must be cautious," Xyler continued. "We will establish a limited alliance. We will share information, but we must remain vigilant." He turned to Krell. "We will learn to trust them slowly, and if they betray us, then we will be ready." The decision was met with a mix of relief and unease. The Krill, a species built on fear and control, were stepping into the unknown. They were taking a risk. They were trusting humans. The alliance between the Krill and the humans began slowly, tentatively. There was a cautious exchange of information, a sharing of scientific data. Human and Krill scientists worked together, exchanging ideas, learning from each other. They would visit each other's ships and explore each other's technologies. There were diplomatic missions, formal and informal, and they learned about each other's cultures. The Krill were surprised. The humans were compassionate, and they also seemed to have some degree of understanding of the Krill, despite the Krill's seeming hostility. It was a new world. The Krill, in return, were beginning to understand the humans. They had lost their faith in absolute control. They also began to believe in the potential of diplomacy. They also started to see why the humans had been exiled. They also started to understand the value of unity. Through their combined efforts, they began to unravel the mysteries of the void. They discovered new sources of energy, new technologies, and most importantly, new knowledge. And they also uncovered an ancient threat. An artifact, buried deep within a forgotten megastructure, emitted a signal, a beacon. As the months passed, the two species grew closer, the alliance between them strengthened, and the mutual understanding developed into trust. The Krill, who had lived in a world of fear for millennia, had found a new, more peaceful way to live. One day, on the Hope's beacon, Ristova and Krell met in the ship's observation lounge. They looked out at the stars, the galaxy's endless expanse. "We have done well," Ristova said, her voice filled with a sense of wonder. "We have proven that different species can work together." Krell nodded, his compound eyes reflecting the starlight. "Yes, we have." He paused, as if gathering his thoughts. I never thought that this was possible." "What do you mean?" Ristova asked. Krell took a deep breath. "I thought we were alone. I believed in war, in conquering. I never knew that the universe could be so vast, so beautiful." He looked at her. "You have taught us many things." "And you have taught us," Ristova said, smiling. "We are learning as well." Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. The lights flickered, and red emergency lights illuminated the room. "What is happening?" Krell demanded, his voice filled with concern. "The artifact," Chen said, her voice urgent over the comms. "The ancient signal, it's intensifying, and we can't stop it. Something is coming." On the main screen, the universe, as seen from the ship, was a swirling vortex. As they watched, the vortex widened and they saw a ship unlike any they had seen before. The ship was vast, a structure the size of a planet, a geometric marvel of dark metal. It was a perfect, silent shape. The Krill, for the first time, were frightened. As the ship drew closer, they saw, on the edge of the vessel, a dark shape. The shape had a single eye, a black hole at its center. The eye drew them in, and a terrible fear descended over the crew of the Hope's beacon. "This is impossible," Chen said, her voice trembling. "It can't be." The ship continued to draw closer. From the viewport, they saw the stars begin to dim. The ship's surface seemed to absorb all light, to consume it, and to spread the void. Ristova's expression was grim. "What is it?" Krell asked, his voice shaking. "I don't know," Ristova said, her voice quiet, "but it's not good." The ship came closer. The Krill Council was contacted. The Krill and the humans, for the first time, were truly united. They put their differences aside and prepared to fight. "What do we do?" Krell asked. Ristova paused. "We fight," she said, her voice filled with determination. "We fight for our future." The humans and the Krill prepared for the unknown. They prepared for the inevitable. The Krill and the humans joined forces, uniting their fleets and technologies, creating a shield to protect themselves and their galaxy. They were outnumbered. They were outgunned, but they would not surrender. The Krill, using their knowledge, used a series of powerful energy blasts, attempting to penetrate the alien vessel. The humans used their knowledge, their speed, and their ability to adapt, using a series of weapons and tactics. The battle was fought across the vastness of the galaxy. The battle raged. The humans and the Krill were valiant, but it was not enough. The artifact was too strong. The unknown ship was too powerful. The ship, however, paused. The giant ship changed direction and turned away. The battle stopped. The ship was traveling toward the galactic core. "Why?" Krell asked, his voice filled with a mixture of confusion and relief. The humans showed Krell a message. The message, it turned out, came from the ship. It said, "We are waiting." The signal they had picked up wasn't a call for war. It was a welcome, a promise. The artifact had, for thousands of years, sent out a message waiting for a species to arrive. The Krill and the humans together had reached the ship, and now they were to be the new caretakers. The Krill looked at the humans looked at the Krill. They knew this was only the beginning. They have been chosen. As they looked at the ship, they knew that something had changed. They looked at each other and they were finally united. As they looked at the ship, they knew that they had a new, uncharted journey. In the obsidian council chamber, the Krill counselors stood in silence, the air thick with awe and anticipation. The holographic display showed the receding silhouette of the colossal ship, now hurtling towards the galactic core, a beacon of mystery and an invitation to the unknown. The initial fear of the Krill had transformed into a new kind of emotion. There was curiosity, a sense of wonder, and for the first time in millennia, hope. Xyler, his voice echoing in the chamber, broke the silence. "The future is uncertain," he said, his voice laced with the gravity of the moment. "But we are not alone." He turned to the human representative, Captain Rostova, who stood at the edge of the holographic display. Her expression was calm, her gaze steady. "We have always been alone," Rostova said, her voice filled with determination. "But we were never truly alone. Now we are united, we are a family, we are the Krill, and we are humans, and we will face whatever lies ahead together." She paused, then added with a hint of a smile, "The Forgotten have become the Empire, and we have the whole galaxy to explore." Zalera, standing by, said nothing. For the first time, the Krill were united. The Krill had adapted and, in a way, evolved. The hologram shifted, showing the uncharted sectors of the galaxy. "This is a new chapter," Xyler continued. "A new beginning. We will face the unknown together." Rostova nodded and turned to Krell. The Krill leader nodded in return. The Krill and the humans would prepare their vessels. The Hope's beacon and the Krill warships, now aligned, prepared to embark on a new journey. The Forgotten, the Exiled, the species deemed insignificant by the universe, were now the architects of their own destiny. They had faced their fears, forged an alliance, and together they would face the vastness of the cosmos. Their journey had just begun.